Yeah, he seems fine, but even if he was getting bullied, he could have gone to the doctor's office before coming here, Borden replied. Well, I still think we should keep an eye on him. There's no way higher levels would just become friends with a lower level for no reason, Quinn said. Borden cleared his throat loudly and started to look at himself. Of course, there are some exceptions, Quinn said, smiling. With the other two now fast asleep, Quinn was still awake, messing around with his system. He was busy watching the tutorial videos of the hammer strike. The next day, Quinn had woken up earlier than the other two. He immediately wanted to go to the game to create his character and test out the skill he had been learning all night. Just in case the others wondered where Quinn was, he left a note before leaving. When he finally arrived, the VR room was emptier than it was yesterday. He went up to the pretty lady who stood behind the counter and asked to rent a capsule, only this time for 2 hours. Before entering his capsule, Quinn looked around the room and noticed some students carrying their beast weapons with them. Not all students used one like Vorden, but after watching the games Vorden had played yesterday, he did see a few of his opponents have one, which meant that the game was also able to recognize the power of beast weapons. Scan complete. The beast weapon may now be used with the capsule. He then hopped in and logged into the game. Please create a user ID. Quinn thought long and hard. He didn't want anything that could give his real identity away, but at the same time he wanted a name that would express his newfound self. Something like Vampire God just wouldn't work and gave too much information. Finally, he had settled on a name. User ID created, Blood Evolver. The next step was to design his character. The body proportions of his character were the same as him, but he was able to choose what hairstyle and simple clothing he wanted on it. Quinn had always been born with black curly hair and wanted to change it but never got the chance to. After going through all the options, he finally decided on a red, spiky-haired character who wore simpler villager clothing. It looked like a farmer from an old fantasy world. Once the character had been completed, Quinn was once again teleported to the large, white, empty room. That's when Quinn noticed something. While in the room, Quinn was able to walk around freely and move his body just like he could outside. He was currently dressed as the character and even had his gauntlets on. Then, when Quinn tried to open up his system, to his surprise, it appeared like usual, showing all of his current stats. Quinn looked down at his gauntlets and immediately wanted to test something out. Blood swipe. And in that instant, a red claw-like line left Quinn's hands and scratched the ground. For whatever reason, it seemed like Quinn's system and abilities still worked inside the game. Just in case, Quinn opened up the game system and checked, and right next to his name, where there was a section to fill in your ability, there were the words written none in the box. But the fact that Quinn was able to use these abilities in the game made him think, was his system really an ability? At first he assumed so. After all, he had received the power from what had looked like an ability book. Of course, he had never heard of an ability like this before, but there were many abilities in the world that originals had hidden and kept for themselves. Then he thought back to his status change. Next to race, it stated he was no longer human. Perhaps his abilities were more a side effect of changing race, rather than an ability itself. That's why the skills that he unlocked through the system didn't really follow a pattern. If Quinn's theory was right, did this mean he could also learn an ability? Before going into his first game, Quinn wanted to test out the hammer strike. He had been watching the video all last night and felt like he was ready. Place your foot forward like this and at the same time rotate your body. The energy should flow through your toes upwards. Then, as you pull back your hand, stomp on the ground and at the same time release the energy through your fist. Quinn mumbled as he went through the steps. He could feel the energy rising from the bottom of his feet into his fist. The powerful strike left his hand, and a loud bang was heard. A small shockwave in the air was created. I did it, Quinn said. For his first match, Quinn wanted to go against the same power-level user as him. She just wanted to make sure of a few things. The game had found him an opponent, and he was immediately teleported to an arena. Quinn got in close to the student and was ready for whatever was to come. That's when the student had shape-shifted his hands into a claw-like shape and scratched at Quinn's body. The attack was slow, and Quinn was able to block but chose not to, and allowed the attack to scratch against his chest. HP is currently full, unable to use blood bank. It was as he had suspected. Although he took damage in the game, nothing had happened to his real body outside. He dashed forward, and when he was close enough, he threw out a blood swipe. The student lifted his claws to block, but the second the blood swipe made impact, His claws had shattered, and followed up behind the first blood swipe was a second one. Quinn got in closer to the student. By now, the student's claws had already regenerated. The student swung again, but this time, Quinn ducked underneath the attack and threw out a punch to the student's stomach, followed by another punch to the student's face, and finished him off with a cross-shaped dual blood swipe with both hands. Winner, Blood Evolver. Opponent has been defeated. 25 EXP has been earned. 305 of 400 XP. This was a large surprise to him, as Quinn didn't expect a fight in the game to contribute to points in his system, but at the same time, this was great news. But now that Quinn was able to level up, it solved his current problem of getting stronger without the need of consuming blood. Quinn immediately went to search for another game. He set the power level to level 1, that way he would be matched up against easy opponents. An opponent was almost found instantly, and Quinn got straight to work. And his plan worked. His first opponent was dealt with so quickly that Quinn didn't even have time to find out what ability he had. 25 EXP gained, 330 of 400. Quinn's next 3 opponents were dealt with just as easy as the other 2. 405 of 400 EXP. Congratulations, you are now level 4. Race, Halfling. HP, 25 of 25. 5 of 800 EXP. Strength, 13, 3. Stamina, 12. Agility, 14. For the first time since Quinn had leveled up, he hadn't received a new ability. He somehow had expected this, but at the same time was hoping for something useful. Finally, though, what Quinn had wanted had arrived. The reason why he wanted to level up so fast was because of the free stat point received after every level up. Agility 15. He immediately put the point into his agility stat, and now he could finally learn the flash step from the tutorial. After several minutes of Quinn practicing the flash step, he finally had a stroke of success. Yes! Quinn shouted. However, what Quinn did notice was while he was in the White Room on his own, his body would never feel tired. It meant the White Room acted like some type of training room, where they were unaffected by their physical body's restraints. With the flash step learnt, Quinn finally wanted to experience a fight with a tougher opponent. In the real world, you wouldn't be able to choose who you went up against, so it was important for Quinn to have experience fighting in all sorts of situations. Then, a few moments later, a match was found. This time, when Quinn entered the arena floor, he could see his opponent standing opposite him. He was wearing a long red cape, and by his side were 2 daggers. Quinn also realized they weren't alone either. "Oh, don't worry about him," the cape man said. "He's just my senior. He's watching me fight so he can give tips." Quinn then tried using his inspect skill on his opponent to see what power level or ability they had, but there was no luck. But before the match began, Quinn made sure to open up his status screen and decided to leave it open and off to the side. When both of them were ready, the countdown started over their heads. 3, 2, 1, go! The cape man took out his daggers and swung them out fast. 2 wind blades followed. The attack was similar to Quinn's blood swipe, only the distance the attack could be used was far greater and faster. Quinn then decided to attack with his own blood swipe. The 2 lines of power clashed in the middle and canceled each other out. A red color. What ability is that? The cape man was wondering. This time Quinn charged forward. The caped man, seeing this, threw more wind strikes out, but Quinn just replied back with his own blood swipes, but this time sending out 4 of them. When the first 2 canceled out the wind strikes, the next 2 carried on moving forward. That's when the caped man lifted his cape and spun around. The blood strike smacked into the cape, but there was no effect and not even a scratch left on the cape. Is that beast armor, and a high-level one at that? Quinn thought. The caped man swung his daggers out fast. Quinn lifted his hands and managed to grab onto the daggers, allowing the blade to just come out from his fingertips. Then suddenly, the aura around the daggers grew, and the wind forming around dagger allowed the ends of the blade to grow and act more like a sword, piercing Quinn in both shoulders. The capped man pulled back and went for another strike. "I don't know what your ability is, but it's over," the capped man said. But then suddenly, his dagger had hit nothing but empty air and space, and no one could be seen. As he turned around, a sharp claw penetrated the man's stomach. Then another attack after attack at great speed was tearing his stomach apart, and to finish him off, 2 more blood swipes. 25 experience gained, 30 of 800 experience. The man watching in the arena stood up on his feet as he saw his friend lose the match. The 2 of them so far had been on a winning streak, taking it in turns facing opponent after opponent.
The sudden loss had come as a shock to them. That skill at the end, what was that? Then, just as Quinn was about to log out and go find another match, he heard someone call out to him. "Wait!" the man in the seat shouted. "Please fight me!" Quinn had no problem with this and accepted, but unknown to him, the man he was about to face was one of the strongest students from another military school.
Hi, Quinn here. Wondering what happens next? If you want to jump the queue and unleash all episodes, click on the link here and install the Pocket FM app.